Not too long ago, I made a video about my first Noita victory. And while it was a pretty fun run, and I learned a lot, I had really only scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. So I kept at it, and after several more attempts, I eventually got a run that, although starting out a little shaky, ended up being the craziest run I've ever had, spanning many hours and multiple parallel worlds, battling the boss with over 1 trillion HP, and achieving the peaceful ending. I present to you my first Noita God Run. After my first video, I made the decision to only start recording if I go to parallel worlds. As much as I hate to just drop you into a run already in progress, it's probably better to skip the more boring grind of the beginning of a run. In fact, things are going so poorly that I'm actually going to a parallel world because I'm not confident enough with what I've found so far to even head to the Hisi base. To catch up, I currently have a very good luminous drill digging wand, a semi-rapid firing energy orb wand, though it is a shuffler, and a teleport bolt. As for perks, I have faster projectiles, perk lottery, which is huge getting so early on, especially when going to parallel worlds, hungry ghost, critical plus, revenge bullets, and exploding corpses. Not sure if I'd take that last one had I known this run would go so deep, but the early game explosion immunity was too good to pass up. I had, of course, already found a relatively easy way to traverse parallel worlds with the combination of the faster projectiles perk, a bottle of ambrosia, and a handful of black hole spells. I make my way to the edge of the world border before realizing I forgot to swap in black hole, and since I don't have the Tinker with Wands Everywhere perk, I have to backtrack all the way back to the first holy mountain to change spells. When doing so, I accidentally collapse the mountain because of course I do, but hopefully by the time I return, that won't be an issue. I use my drill to go as far as I can before hitting Cursed Rock. Here, we launch our black hole, getting some pretty good distance with the faster projectiles perk. Next, we pour out some ambrosia and stain our cells. I stain up to about 30%, which is more than enough. Then we just teleport into the rock, swap to black hole, and cut more of a path. Teleport again, and just repeat. As long as we teleport as opposed to walk, the ambrosia stain will only very slowly drop, lasting long enough to protect us from the damage we would incur from the cursed rock. Once through, we just dig the rest of the way with the drill, and we've officially entered Parallel World West 1. Now, the surface of these worlds can be dangerous, with parallel versions of the Alchemist and Wand Connoisseur floating about, bosses that I'm definitely not ready for. So my strategy is to just continuously teleport until I find my way to the mine's entrance. Long distance teleport bolt is a bit finicky for me, but it's good enough to make it to the mines unharmed. Interestingly, my original mines had a biome modifier, Soil After Rain, which spawns grass and vines with poisonous flowers. It seems like this modifier is also applied to all parallel versions of the biome. That can be great or terrible for some runs depending on the modifier. For this one, it's a bit underwhelming. Anyway, I don't spend too much time here, although I am looking for spells and wands and, well, anything really to help me out. The good stuff is potentially at the Holy Mountain and beyond. But that poses a bit of a problem. Using a purple portal at the bottom of a biome would normally teleport you inside the Holy Mountain, but in parallel worlds it teleports you back into the corresponding Holy Mountain of the original world. Let's call it World 0. So we'll need a way into the mountain without angering the gods, as although I could probably defeat the Guardian, I don't want to take the risk spawning the Super Guardian shortly after. I do get to fight the ghost of my previous run while I'm here, which is always fun. Take that, me! Getting into the Holy Mountain with just a teleport bolt is always a bit risky for a noob like myself, but I don't mess it up this time. I reroll the perk machine once and take Permanent Shield. I don't take any spells just yet, and for safer re-entry, I just dig my way out through the tiny safe sliver. My primary focus now is getting good spells, as without them, I won't be getting very far. The Snowy Depths is probably the best place for finding wands at the moment, so I skip the coal pits and head straight there, stopping in at the Holy Mountain and taking fire immunity, which is pretty huge. Energy Orb makes navigating the depths much easier, especially with Luminous Drill. I can dig through anything and stay in the ground for protection if I have to. However, I very soon find some spells and swap out the orb for Triplicate Bolt with Orbiting Fireball. It's a bit mana hungry, but totally worth it, and I don't have to worry about hurting myself having fire and explosion immunity perks. I also dig into the ice shop room. There's some cool stuff here, but nothing that benefits me immediately. I figure this one is strong enough to take me through the Hisi base, so I head down. I also don't remember how or why, but I guess I cut through the brickwork here, angering the gods. Oops. I soon, however, find a new wand that I can put my fireball build into. It takes 2 add mana spells, but I am finally able to rapid fire it. It's already crazy as frick, but trust me, we're only getting started. I'm also able to trap a medic in an area with a stationary turret so I can come back for some free healing. And I also have a pheromone potion, so if the turret trick fails for whatever reason, I can just pheromone the medic. I also find Healing Bolt. I'm pretty excited to see it here, but I never really get a chance to build a good healing wand with it. Surely our Fireball wand is good enough for the jungle, I think, so I dig on, this time digging straight into the Holy Mountain, as now the gods are angry anyway. I guess I didn't record the first fight with Steven, so here's the second with our new wand. It looks cool, but could use some work on the DPS. I take another critical plus perk, buy Sawblade Orbit, swap it with the Fireball Orbit, and holy... Well, there's the DPS I needed. Excellent slice damage that also cuts through everything, and it won't set everything on fire, which is good for the jungle. At this point, we're cruising, and I decide to test the wand out on the dragon. That goes extremely well, as the dragon dies in about 1 second. This wand is a little dangerous, as projectiles can potentially bounce around and then come back and hit me, but that really only happens if I fire upward, and, you know, I don't really care. The wand is so awesome, and I want to use it, so to split with the consequences. I head down for the last Steven fight before his big brother wakes up, but now I'm less concerned. I do re-roll the machine, not really thinking about breaking it at all at this point. I take the extra perk and perk lottery procs, and so I also take another permanent shield. Currently, I'm looking for good base wands and modifier spells to improve our build. Now, I don't really remember what happened here, as I wasn't recording everything and wasn't really taking notes yet, but I somehow accidentally took a purple portal and ended back at World 0. I think I was headed back up to check out the fungal caverns in the pit and just stepped in accidentally. It's not a huge loss though. I explore a bit before heading up to see if I can take on the alchemist. It's not a good idea, as the shields reflect my saw blades back to me, so I run away for now. I also pop into the dark cave for the extra max health and regen, and then almost immediately end the run with my saw blades. Okay, I guess I'll take their risk a little more seriously now. Unfortunately, I've already had to take all the regens at every holy mountain here, so I end up heading all the way to the Hisi base and leading a medic into the holy mountain, and that pheromone potion finally comes in handy. Once healed, it's back to exploring. I finally make it to the mountain at the bottom of the Hisi base, and we see Scott for the first time. He does land a hit, but it's not too damaging, and I end him quickly. I end up taking Vampirism, though I realized it doesn't work well with exploding corpses. Still nice to have, especially early on. Another dragon kill, another Scott kill, another perk, this time extra life. I head through the vault, not really looking to full explore. I'm pretty much in perk collecting mode at the moment. As such, at the next holy mountain, I take No More Shuffle, which is absolutely excellent. No More Knockback, nice. And Revenge Explosion, another one that I'm not so sure I'd take on another god run. The next level down, the art can be pretty dangerous, but I'm feeling pretty good going in. Our main murder wand hasn't really changed at all, but here I do find a better wand to swap the spells into. I make it to the final holy mountain with no issue, and here waiting for me is arguably the best perk in the game, Tinker with Wands Everywhere. Perk Lottery doesn't proc, but that's okay, this is all I need. I backtrack towards the surface as I think about what I want to do next. At this point, I'm not even considering this could become a 33 orb run. Instead, I want to focus on just seeing if I can get stronger and maybe unlock some things for subsequent runs. To that end, some good spells would be nice. I decide to go for round 2 with the Alchemist, but I don't really have a good spell for it yet, so it's again a failure. I also decide to fight the Pyramid boss, which fares slightly better, but the drops don't help at the moment. Those spells are nice. I figure I'm at least strong enough to easily travel to more parallel worlds and hit up more Holy Mountain perks, so I do just that. Heading east this time, I'm still using black holes, as they're a bit cleaner, and now with the speed up modifier, they travel much further, so I save on their limited spell usage. It doesn't take too long to find and pass through the mines of East 1. I re-roll the first Holy Mountain and take faster movement. I dig into the eye room and take another add mana, which lets me add a critical plus spell to our main wand, making it even stronger. The next two mountains give us melee immunity and unlimited spells, two very good progression perks. I stop in for my third dragon kill, mostly looking for a good wand drop, and I actually get one that's good enough to swap our saw blades into. I also attempt to make a quick boss killer wand with Orbit Larpa and Plasma Beam. It has some issues, so I can't really use it just yet, but building this wand is kind of a side project for me. Most notably in East 1, I take phasing at the Vault's Holy Mountain, or the Arts Mountain if you prefer, which is the last Holy Mountain in Parallel Worlds, as the Laboratory and connected Holy Mountain doesn't spawn in them. By now, I've added Venomous Curse and Light Shot to the wand. I also tried to add in Fireball Orbit, but the Saw Blades take priority. I somehow didn't realize this and ended up just leaving them both in the wand, probably consuming mana even if it doesn't trigger. On the way back, I explore the coal pits a bit for extra max healths, which are plentiful and easily accessed here. I also poke into the fungal caverns, and finally find a Plasma Beam Orbit, one more piece to the Boss Killer Wand side quest. However, I already have enough good spells to finally take on the Alchemist, so with that, I actually head back to World 0, stopping by for some medic heals as I make my way to the surface. The wand I threw together for this fight is overly bloated and honestly could have just been 1 to 2 spells, but whatever. Trapping the Alchemist in a simple square barrier is enough to quickly kill it. It doesn't drop the best spells, but it drops enough to make do. I slap together a quick infinite black hole wand using the Greek letter spell Omega. This will make travel much quicker and cleaner than digging through everything with my saw blades. With fast digging available, it's time to get back on the perk grind. This time we're heading west again, all the way to West 2. Here I'm almost exclusively going for Holy Mountains, speeding from one to the next. Our second mountain in East 2 nets us Toxic Immunity, another top tier perk. I also add Freezing Charge to our wand at the next mountain. Even though I'm not going out of my way to explore, I still need wands and especially spells at this point, so I'm stopping to check any along the path. I dig into the eye room, then pick up Electric Immunity before going to kill the dragon. Now every dragon drops an extra max health upon death. Here I also encounter my first Heartbreaker, and with it we can use a little trick to greatly increase our max health. I'm a little nervous as it's my first time performing this trick and it can be dangerous. Basically, we need to get hit with the Heartbreaker's debuff projectile multiple times. This will reduce our current max health, halving it for every debuff. We then take the extra max health to increase our max health at this lowered state. When each debuff ends, it will double our max HP, starting at this new value, which was higher than the lowest debuff. Hopefully that makes sense. I use Ambrosia as the projectile itself does damage, and I have to practically stand on top of the guy as my shield mostly pushes the attacks away, but in the end, everything works and we walk away with 4.2k HP. Nice. Here I also start taking the More Love perks when I see them, which can make all enemies passive if I can collect enough of them, and on my way back up, I explore a bit of coal pits for more extra max healths, and fungal for whatever it may hold. From here, it's off to West 3, and I'll have to tighten up the summaries a bit here as it would take forever to go through every little detail. For perks, I take Slime Blood, Telekinetic Kick, and another perk lottery, which stacks with the others. I take my first Repulsion Field Sector, and Plague Rats, another questionable God Run choice, and finally my first Repulsion Field, which is different than the Sector version. Since I have Electric Immunity, I also added Electric Charge to our main wand. West 4 doesn't have too much to speak of, mostly defensive layer perks with extra health and extra life and saving grace. We also finally get All-Seeing Eye, which is nice, and Iron Stomach, because why not? We're still cruising, and at West 5, we get another visit from the Heartbreaker. This time I'm starting to regret the Repulsion Field and Shield layers a little. I get him in position using Homebringer Bolt, stain myself up with Ambrosia, and position myself just right to receive their debuffs. It eventually works, but immediately afterwards I see an opportunity for another round. Only this time I have some serious issues. I at first try to use another Heartbreaker. This one won't even attack me. It will attack in retaliation, but only once. I'm pretty sure I only have 2 stacks of More Love, and somehow it can even survive a rapid fire wand to the face. So I try the first one again, and this time I'm having more trouble getting it to hit me. and when it does hit me, I get a damage plus buff instead of a heartache debuff? What the hell? Is this also because of more love? I eventually just give up, settling for only 20k HP. I continue on, adding levitation trails to my list of potentially unwanted perks. The reason why I say some of these perks might not be great is in the case where you want to keep certain enemies alive. Perks that can passively kill enemies take away some of your control. It's definitely debatable and will depend on your playstyle, but I found some of them to be a minor annoyance, but nothing so detrimental that I couldn't play. I'm also avoiding things like Cordyceps and Worm Attractor, and when there are no good alternative perks, I'm also taking things like Trick Greed or Blood Money. By West 6, our main wand now has Damage Field in addition to the Quantum Split it's been rocking for a little while now. Not a lot to note here except maybe another perk lottery. After this, I'm ready to take a break from world hopping and head back to World 0 to test how strong I've become. I've finally thrown together that boss killer wand I was talking about. A very simple spark bolt that releases a homing slime mist cloud with plasma beam orbit. I decided to test it here by taking on the Gate Guardian for the first time ever. First we pelt it with eggs, then released the mist. It's super effective. They drop some random spells that I don't really need, but that's another thing I can check off the list. Next up is something I'm a little more scared of, the Wand Connoisseur. At first, it doesn't spawn, but I guess that's because I'm invisible. When it does spawn, the old boss-killing slime mist takes it out quickly, in a laggy explosion of pretty lights. And finally is the fight that I've been fearing, the Master of Masters. To even get to the arena, I have to pass through a dangerous fungal biome and drop through some cursed rock, although I have enough health now to simply tank the curse damage. I drop the Saw Blade and swap Triplicate Bolt for Spark Bolt for a more precise wand that hopefully won't reflect as much damage to me. I also make sure to have my Teleport wand on the ready. I don't know how the Slime Mist would interact with the reflecting orbs, but I don't want to find out, so I don't even have the wand on me. I try to cheese a bit by fighting from a dugout hole, but the positioning is somewhat awkward. I take off Freeze Charge as it's causing problems, and just try to face him head on. I quickly realize that I might have been a little over-prepared, as with my life pool, even reflected damage is barely noticeable. Better to be safe than sorry, I suppose. The Master goes down easily, and I get some mighty fine spells as rewards. The Wand Refresh is great. It adds a lot of cast delay, so it's hard to work into rapid-fire wands, but I can put it in my 3-spell Digging Wand. This spell essentially disables any spells from being cast placed after it, so I can finally use the empty spaces in my Digging Wand for storage. In my excitement, I run off, leaving my dropped boss-killing spells behind, but I guess I don't need them for now. Go east, young man, go east. I figure that since we made it to West 6, we should at least even things out by going to East 6. At East 3, I start to encounter some pretty serious lag, especially when entering new areas. I also take my 5th speed up perk, which is, in my opinion, one too many. It's just too fast when you need precise movement. But we continue. At this point, we're simply stacking every good thing we can. More perk lotteries, extra health, which becomes significantly stronger the more times we take it, extra lives, stacks of stainless armor, critical plus, phasing, repulsion field, more love, even Trick Greed and Blood Money. In East 5, I finally find Circle of Vigor, one of the last major spells I needed. This heals based on health percentage, and it can be used infinitely with our Greek letter spells. And trust me, this will be incredibly important later. In fact, I try to take some massive damage by standing in Cursed Rock to test the spell out. Even taking enough damage for it to be noticeable is difficult, but the spell works wonderfully. Even though the repulsion field pushes it away, we still heal enough to get back to full HP in most cases. When we finally make it to East 6, we find another Heartbreaker, but it's practically impossible for it to hit me, so I just leave it. Not wanting to go back just yet, I decide to go all the way to West 10. It's funny how our main wand has barely even changed, but it doesn't really need to. It's mostly just killing Scott and the dragon and ignoring everything else. In fact, our love stacks are so high, we have indeed reached that point where most enemies won't even attack, including Scott. And now that we've made it to East 10, why not once again even things out and travel to West 10? I head back to World 0, and before moving on, I decide to go to Hell. It requires passing through some lava, but I souped up my teleport wand with a lava to blood modifier that lets me do this. Hell has some pretty good spells that you can buy. I'm looking for anything helpful really, and find a Gamma, which is one of the best Greek letters in my opinion, as it pairs well with the wand refresh. After that, I pick up a ground to sand modifier to further enhance my teleport wand. It's a little rough, but with this wand, we can move around extremely quickly, digging our way through pretty much everything. This should make these last 4 parallel worlds quick and easy to explore. Somewhere along the way, I took a detour to kill another Gate Guardian, explore the overgrown caverns, and check out a parallel hell. I don't remember how, but I did end up with 2 more wand refreshes. I also rebuilt my boss killer, cleaned it up, and tested it on the Parallel Alchemist and Connoisseur, and what can I say, it's a very simple spell that just works. I also tested it as a general purpose killing wand, and yeah, it's great. Honestly, if you could find long distance cast, plasma beam orbit, and mist early, something not entirely impossible, it could carry you very far into the game, especially if you can also get homing and drilling shot to chase enemies through walls. After hours spent gallivanting about in Worlds Parallel, I finally head back to World 0 to take stock. First of all, our wands. Our main murder wand is still just Triplicate Bolt with Sawblade Orbit and a bunch of modifiers, but I did add a trigger to Triplicate Bolt so that it releases a homing freeze tentacle on impact, just a little bit of extra coverage. There's our Sand to Ground, Lava to Blood Travel Wand, our Boss Killing Mist Wand, and our Healing Wand, the last 2 utilizing Wand Refresh to double as storage wands. I've also taken many faster wands and wand capacity perks, making these wands pretty dang good, though there's a bit of mana balancing I had to do. And speaking of perks, we have a lot. Multiple layers of defense and offense, as well as 171k health. We're probably more than ready for taking on the 33 orb quest, but for right now, I kind of want to do some more unlocking. I mean, why not? The first thing I want to do is complete the Avarice quest and unlock Divide by 10. This will involve cursing ourselves, but with our healing wand, it should be okay. Now I should mention that I've been experiencing a lot of crashes. Something the game is somewhat notorious for is crashing and removing structures or items on restoring saves. So I take the curse, head over to the tower, and when I get there, no diamond. I search very thoroughly, but it's just not there. Unless I'm misunderstanding something, this isn't supposed to happen. Even worse is the diamond doesn't spawn in parallel worlds, so we're just stuck with this curse with nothing to show for it. To lift the curse, we need a fresh holy mountain. For us, that means traveling 11 parallel worlds away. Kind of bad planning on my part, but honestly, unlocking Divide by 10 would have made it worth it. So during that long journey, I have a lot of time to think, and I decide on another venture, breaking the reroll machine. I remove the curse and take a wand of swiftness from the tower there as a consolation, and head back to World 0 to begin breaking. As if I didn't have enough perks already, if we can get the price of the reroll machine to overflow, we can basically have infinite free rolls. If my quick maths is right, I'll need to roll through 32 more machines. I've been to 20 parallel worlds, each with 6 machines, for a total of 120, and I didn't roll most of them. Should be plenty. The last price I stopped on was 26.5k, and I currently have about 7 million gold, which maths out to be more than enough. Also, a few of the machines from the first few worlds I visited should have lower roll values, such as this one from World 0 that still had a price of 6.4k. I'm aware of the trick where you move the reroll machine out of the Holy Mountain, but that's more helpful if you plan on breaking early, and I wasn't even thinking about it early in the run. I didn't record a whole lot of footage as it was just a tedious process of retracing my steps through the worlds while fighting ever-increasing lag and crashes. The further I went, the more machines I found, as I had left a lot of perks behind after perk lottery proc, and left perks I didn't want. During the process, I also finally took dissolving powders in hopes that it would help with the lag potentially caused by my ground to sand. I don't think it made a difference. Anyway, it was the very last machine of West 9 that finally broke. Now, I could have went to West 10 and rolled the other 26.5k machines, but I didn't know how that would work, so to be safe, I just went to West 11. And the perk rolling begins. By now, I'm looking for things to increase my resistances, like Revenge Tentacle, and defenses like phasing and stainless armor. Also extra lives, HP, and anything to increase wand power. I didn't take extra perk past 5 as it's harder to grab perks, especially with my speed, even though perk lottery is maxed now and almost is guaranteed to proc every time. Also, finally take Peace with Gods, probably should have done that a long time ago, as Scott destroying terrain is just annoying at this point. I also take Repelling Cape, as I don't really need it for the Ambrosia anymore. Almost anything left that can stain me is not good. Plus, it synergizes with stainless armor. It's at this time I also decide to take a Wand of Multitudes, another tower wand. It casts 26 spells per cast. This, however, can be controlled with Wand Refresh and Greek letter spells, so I swap into it, and decide to take another free reroll trip into West 13. I only need 3 perks to get this new wand's delay and recharge to functionally 0, so I can collect a bunch of other nice perks afterwards. When I've had my fill, I take one more trip back to World 0 to once again take stock. So let's talk perks. 9 Revenge Tentacles, which give 25% projectile resistance each, 11 Slower Projectiles, 16 Stainless Armors, 15 Extra Lives, 15 Repulsion Fields, 17 Phasing, 5 Permanent Shields, 16 Revenge Bullets, 3 Critical Pluses. Those are probably the most notable, but there's so much more. 7 Stacks of Love, meaning enemies won't even attack, all immunities, faster movement, stronger levitation, and so much more. Now, I didn't realize it until later, but some of these perks have hidden negative effects. Notably, phasing adds 33% explosive and projectile damage per stack. But I would like to think this is compensated for by all the other layers, projectile resistance, repulsion fields, and of course the health pool of 75 million HP. And that's if I can even get an enemy to fire at me at all with the love. I think at least I can tentatively call this a god run at this point. So, what now? Well, like before, I decide I might as well unlock some more spells. I've done the light chest before, but never the dark chest, so let's start with that. Something simple. Or at least something that should be simple. Unfortunately, even just traveling to the wind instrument wands and trying to empower the key is incurring a lot of crashes. The game is slow to load, and I'm seeing this error message almost every time, which is kind of insulting. I do not have a slow computer. Anyway, I guess after 20 parallel worlds, the game's at 6s and 7s, and fearing that I could suffer a crash that corrupts my world into unplayability, after opening the Dark Chest, I decided to just focus on getting into a New Game Plus. That means I need to collect 5 to 10 orbs. I know I'm missing a few for the unlocks, so I collect all of them except for the one above the mines. It's a little overkill, but at least it's thorough, and I happen upon the chest with the End of Everything spell along the way. It's funny because I found the broken portal very early and held on to it this entire time in case I got the chance to do that quest. At least it's another unlock, I guess. At 10 orbs, Colmy has quite a bit of HP, so I use this wand build that I found online to take it out no problem. From here, we just head back up to the altar above the starting mines and enter a New Game Plus. A fresh, new game world. That should solve all of our issues, right? Well, no. There's still quite a bit of crashes. It's likely some of the blame can be shared with my graphics driver, the joy of Linux gaming. With the run already being many hours over the course of several days, I decide to just stay focused on one goal, collecting 33 orbs and beating the game. Now, the location of the orbs are somewhat randomized in a New Game Plus. I ended up just using the Noita orb atlas that tells you where they are based on your seed, and even with the atlas, they're still not super easy to find. Some people may argue that using guides cheapens the experience. I don't think so at all. I don't have all the time in the world for things like this, so why let the combined efforts of the community go to waste? Except the fandom site, that can definitely go to waste. Also, after 20 parallel worlds of this, the last thing I want to do is dig through every inch of the world until I find them. So yeah, at this point not much of note happens as I roam the world in search of orbs. To my surprise, the perk machine is still broken, so I get gas blood, which I for some reason never took, and would have really came in handy when we had the greed curse. Things get a bit more interesting when collecting orbs in parallel worlds. These are orbs of corrupted knowledge that curse you when picked up, dealing pretty massive damage over the span of like 10 seconds. At first I carefully stood still and just healed myself repeatedly until the curse lifted, but eventually I just started flying away, healing as I went on. This actually turned out to be a bad idea, as I ended up flying through the meat realm, a biome in which you can't heal, and every time you enter, your HP is set to what it was when you last left the biome. This can be solved by killing a boss, but that boss doesn't spawn in New Game Plus, so I basically just have to avoid the meat realm forever. After finally finding all the orbs, all that's left to do is grab the Sampo and turn it into the altar. But there's one important thing left. We have to deal with Colmy again, and at 33 orbs it has over 1 trillion HP. I made the decision to not kill it early as I wanted to really put this build to the test. If things go horribly wrong, I can hopefully just run, as you aren't required to kill Colmy, but I want to. I'm again using a wand build that I found online, slightly different than before, though both are based on the OP spells to power spell. I have to drop a lot of spells so I can use Omega, which hopefully I can come back for. Also hoping the spell itself doesn't crash the game. I grab the Sampo and start the fight. Colmy itself moves slowly and uses slow projectiles that I don't seem to have too much trouble pushing away with my fields. I'm a little worried because the spell doesn't do anything at first, but I realize later that's probably because its shields were up. I think I hit one of my own revenge rats, which triggered the Gods Are Afraid achievements, which is just wonderful. Eventually, I figure out the timing and positioning of the spell, and don't blink, 33 orb Colmy dead in one shot. That's it. I pick up my spells and head to the altar. I turn in the Sampo and achieve world peace. The peaceful ending. I mean, no enemies are hostile because we have 7 stacks of love already, but now they're even more peaceful. The end. Or is it really? I mean, I have this pretty much brand new world I could potentially explore, and there are still some pillar achievements I could attempt. In the end, I decide that I'm ready for the run to end. I want to see the stat screen, and I especially want my amulet. So let's reflect on the run, and how I might do things differently in the future as I look for a way to die. There are, of course, several perks that I mentioned that are somewhat more annoying than useful. I would definitely keep in mind all the revenge-type perks, at least before getting the chance to use the Heartbreak trick a few times. I would also perhaps try to break the reroll machine earlier, if only to keep the amount of visited parallel worlds down and keep the save more stable. Of course, that would also mean getting lucky with unrolled perks early, especially if I'm avoiding some. So if I want to be extremely efficient, I can either get lucky or play with a low amount of perks. Of course, this kind of extreme efficiency probably isn't even needed. I could probably just go into New Game Plus earlier and split the parallel world exploration between them. New Game Plus 2 would probably be just enough, especially if breaking the machine as early as possible. I know each New Game Plus level increases difficulty in certain aspects, but it's not like you need to go too deep for a run. Or maybe that's what I should do for a good challenge. I would also like to work on my wand building a little more. My murder wand building strat was basically just apply as many modifiers to a basic projectile as possible. I mean, it works, but I know I can do better with less. The Mist spell is semi-original, though it's based on a wisp I saw from Nymph's Godrun videos. Though I feel that there's eventually a point where you don't need to make your wand any stronger, as enemies don't scale, though higher New Game Plus levels might help. Anyway, for some experts out there who get these god runs every time they play, none of this might be particularly exciting. But I absolutely loved this run. I couldn't stop, honestly, fully addicted, spending my time away from the game thinking about what I was going to do next. I learned a lot and can't wait for future runs. When I first heard about 33 orb runs, I thought it was something I could never achieve. But here we are, and there's still so much left to this game. So, let's die. After realizing Touch of Gold barely does any damage to me, I searched for almost 10 minutes just to find a bottle of polymorphine. It's everywhere until you actually need it. I unceremoniously douse myself with polymorphine and jump into the nearest puddle of lava. And I actually see a credits scroll, kind of a nice surprise. But I'm not sure what's up with this stat screen. I am using 2 mods, the Disable Low Health Flashing mod, and the one that re-enables progress when using mods. Some things seem to have updated correctly, like my enemies slain and items found, but others? Gold? I had a little more than that. And is that the HP from the sheep that I just polymorphed into? Also, the total wins stat should be at 2 now, shouldn't it? Perhaps it's related to the crashes? Weird, but it doesn't really matter. I was mostly interested in the total time. Hard to believe that this was a 22-hour run. Even crazier that I was able to condense it down into however long this video turns out to be, probably barely a half hour. I restart the game. I'm stripped of all my powers and left with nothing but a pea shooter. But I now have a memento. One shiny reminder of what is possible, and what is to come. Thanks for watching.